asking for another round of applause for our host, the Guardian. So please. They are kindly providing beer and food later, but we want to know more about the Guardian, aren't we? Yeah. So Tony will tell us about the Guardian from the developer's perspective.
Hi guys. Thank you for coming in such numbers. Thank you for visiting the Guardian for this PHP meetup today. I would like to, in a few minutes, tell you something about what we do. There's about 20-ish developers at the moment in the Guardian. We have offices in Mostar, Belgrade, and Zagreb. We started out as like a marketing support company, so Facebook applications, one-pagers, and stuff like that, simple stuff, but managed in 8 years to get to something that I find really great. We're making platforms, we're making APIs, we're making mobile applications, we're even making a blockchain exchange. So, in a nutshell, that would basically be it. We're always looking for new people, and currently we're trying to find about 5 to 10 people, I would say, both mobile, PHP developers, and QA engineers and stuff like that. So, if anyone's interested, you can come to me and we can talk. And basically, that would be it.
Awesome. Thank you. So for all of you that want to share something with us, or that want to brag about your awesome tools, strategies, and implementations, we'll be having a lightning talk session today. So if you want to prepare a 5-minute lightning talk about something, to show something, or maybe ask for help, cry for help, whatever, feel free to submit. I think Tony is a great person to go through the topics.
Yeah.
So he will explain the rules later. As you know, ZgPHP is part of the community, is a group that is supporting the organizing of the webcam conference. And as you already may know, that early bird tickets are in sale, so are available for sale. So you can buy it at a discounted price. And on the 21st of May, call for paper will start. So basically, if you have great lightning talk, you can upgrade it to full talk and maybe submit it for a conference. Yeah. Okay, now we'll skip to giving away prizes. Tomo will be picking out somebody and give away prizes. So, round of applause for Tomo.
Good evening. Thank you all for coming. Is anyone here who doesn't know how this graph of ours works? Few people show hands, please. Okay, so like Zoka said, when you leave comments on JDN for the talks that you saw or heard, you automatically become eligible for entering the raffle. We're giving away several prizes. Today we're giving away Shift Conference tickets, Code Anywhere, and PHP Storm licenses. We'll be picking out a few lucky winners tonight who left comments on the previous 3 meetups. So, drum roll. Excellent. Okay, so here we have a list of people who are eligible for winning prizes. The people in red are sadly not eligible. So, here we go. Boris Bordovich. Is Boris in the house? No. Sorry, Boris isn't in the house. Matija Kovacevic. Great. You won! Yeah, you can pick between these.
When's the shift conference? The dates? Sorry.
Excuse me?
The dates of the shift conference.
1st and 2nd June. June 1st and 2nd.
Then PHP Storm.
Okay. PHP Storm. Matija Kovacevic. Zvonimir Spajić. No show. Neo coding. No, sure. And the last one, Willem Sturgeon.
I'll take code editor.
Code editor. Great. Okay, we're feeling a lot tonight. One more. Ivan Košić. Going once? Going twice? Sorry. That would be it for today's raffle. Please leave feedback and comments on joining in for our speakers, and next time, who knows, maybe we'll have even some other prizes to offer you. So leave feedback. That's it. And remember to apply for lightning talks later on. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. So it's not only enough to leave a comment. You have to be here when we are giving away prizes. It's too easy to win something, you know. Too easy. Just have to come here and get it. So please don't do this anymore. So we are going to now announce the GDPR panel. I can see that you are all prepared. You are all compliant. So we should do this more often. You know, 5 to 12 panel discussions about something that nobody else have done on time. Okay, your moderator will be Miro, and he's taking from now. So one round of applause for Miro and our panelists.
Hi everyone. So let's start introducing yourself.
Okay, so hi everyone. So my name is Stefan Perko, and I'm CEO of one company which is named Lolongo. And we are doing compliance of the clients who need to be in line with the GDPR on 25th May, as you know. So much excitement. As Mira started this thing, so I will say a few things. So I'm a PhD actually about privacy. So I'm trying to prove that there is one specific definition of privacy that interests me the most, and that's that privacy is a legitimate way of concealment, you know. So that's one thing, and why it is related directly to the GDPR, because I'm claiming in my paper or thesis, whatever, that actually you have this strong relation between technology and privacy in the end, you know, where privacy is actually opposite thing of technology. Technology is a way of revealment in the end. So that's one side, and when we talk about technology, usually we look at devices, we look at procedures also, we look at the processes and at the services. So all those things are in my PhD, so yeah. So basically, you know, we are drinking beer here, and we will discuss in the end what's going on. You know.
Hi everyone, my name is Ozan Kirpan. I'm a security consultant at Diverto. That's on floor of or 2, I don't know. Basically, Diverto is a security firm that is handling all your security problems. We have red teaming, which is basically offense. We are trying to attack you and see where are your loopholes, holes, and stuff. Then we have a blue team. We are trying to protect you. And then there is my team for governance, which is basically we are in account of compliance, which basically is also GDPR, ISO standards, and everything else related to security consultancy. So that's pretty much it.
Hi, I'm Ivo Lukacs, company called NetGame. I'm not a GDPR consultant, I'm not a GDPR expert, I'm not, don't know much about GDPR. I'm the black sheep in the panel. I will try to ask as much as provocative questions as I can. I'm of course interested in this topic because the company is a web agency, so we need to consult or advise our clients what to do, especially on the technical side. And there's a lot of open questions that are, still there, even though we have only a week, I think, left. So it will be quite interesting 7 days. 8 days.
Yeah.
I think I'll do some kind of a webinar on a Friday morning on 25th, like GDPR celebration or whatever.
Drink up.
So who's fighting GDPR at the moment?
Fighting positively or negatively?
Working on GDPR. I mean, not that many. Who's expecting to work on GDPR?
In 7 days.
Okay, so one of the things, so we have about 90 minutes, so we'll try to be as technical as we can. And I know that for some of you that might feel wrong, but GDPR is actually not that much a technical thing. It's more of a law versus business, not that much technical part. Why am I okay.
I'm ready.
No, okay. Why?
Because IT.
That's because IT is only supporting the business
Yep.
at its core. Basically, that's it. That's why it's not that much tech oriented. First, you have to organize your business, then you can implement some tech.
Yeah, but the rules are coming from business, not from the tech side.
Exactly.
So we do agree.
Yes, we do.
Oh, I thought you were.
I thought you were.
So I think that there is actually 4 sides. When you look at GDPR, one is law side, that is not actually business law; it's something completely different. One thing that you probably mean as a business, that's sales and that's PR department. When you look at your company. So in the end, when you're compliant with GDPR, you need to look at 4 sides. One is technical, the other one is law side, that you're compliant with the supervisory body, and that you're compliant in line with the law as regulation in this case. And you need to have strong position with your sales team to not have this situation where a client will decline specific agreement or whatever. You need to also adapt that part, and the PR side is good. For example, Apple is using a lot of this buzz about privacy to show that actually they care about privacy. And in the next year or maybe even more, privacy will be also PR concept. So that's also something to mention.
Yeah, but I'm gonna guess that for some of the people here, they are the GDPR people. Like, how many of your clients have told you you have to be GDPR compliant by next Friday, but you do it. You do whatever you have to do. Just make us compliant.
Just put this banner.
So before, we are not recording your hands up in the air. So
Put your hand up.
it's okay. Only a few hands up. Actually, nice to see. So
Yeah.
So one of the things that I was really wondering, and I read a bit about, is GDPR actually changing any laws? Is it changing anything that's not already here in EU, considering privacy?
Okay, so you have 2 sides. You have, if we speak as law guys, so you have harmonization. That's the concept when you have one specific regulation. When we say regulation, it means that you have a law which is specific about specific regulation. You need to implement specific law to have regulation in function. Regulation is above national law. That's the case. It's a strong law case. That's one thing. And when you look at the concept of harmonization, it means that every law inside national law body or whatever is affected by the GDPR. During the time, you will have changes in the law of in the right of information of the citizens. You will have changes even in the work laws and so on and so on. It will happen during the time. That's one thing about harmonization. Other thing is that you have national states which have now situation at a broader level where you have single market inside the EU, where we can actually say that this is like backbone of single digital market, you know, in the end. That's like other part of harmonization that is happening between national states. The other part is that will happen inside the national states, where every different law that is kind of close to GDPR will have its own changes during this time also. Croatia is usually the first one in line to comply with everything, but you know, we'll see.
I mean, basically, regarding to GDPR, why GDPR? I always ask that question. GDPR basically just emphasizes the current laws currently, and it states that regarding to you as a European citizen, you have right to your own data. And that gives you some kind of power, so that other companies don't trade it around behind your back. That
all those laws are already here.
Yeah, but how many companies are compliant with those laws and are following through those laws? You know, they are here, but so now they will have more meaning. So
one really nice example happened, I think, today, where in the US they found out that all the cell carriers are selling your data, live data location, to other companies. So everybody, if I was in US, everybody would know where I am. And I think the that is already forbidden in EU. But the GDPR would just define the fines for that breakage, or not?
From my perspective, yeah. Because, I mean, now they can say, I mean, you didn't give your consent to do that. You don't know where your data was. You didn't know that that was happening. And now you have the tool to ask the question, what are you doing? What are you doing with my data? And why are you doing that? If you don't have any reasons to do it, I'm not okay with that. And if you're still gonna do it, then you'll be in trouble.
I think that what Stefan said is that the problem is that there are so many national laws which are not like the same. So GDPR is to harmonize that. So it's much easier for companies that are working in the EU market to know what they should do. That's the point of the single market, so that it's much easier to comply. I would say that's quite important in this case because our law is not the same as the German law. The German law was quite strict in many things, and they were enforcing a lot of things. But in our case, we might have some law, but it was really not there almost.
Actually, if you take in Germany, our laws are more or less copy-pasted theirs.
But not enforced.
That's the difference.
So, just underline one thing. So you had this previous directive 95 EC45. It's kind of really great to quote that. So it's a joke. Sorry. Okay, so the main difference between directive and regulation. Directive, when you have directive, that's kind of an inspiration for the national law. That's one thing, and when you have a regulation, that's direct application through law of application. So just to understand that. So other thing that's different, when you look at GDPR and the previous inspired by directive laws. Now the case is that companies need to prove that they are compliant with GDPR. Usually with the directive was the case where the clients or the citizens needed to have situation where they will have screenshots and they will send specific issues or non-compliance or cases or whatever to supervisory bodies. Now the situation is completely different. Now the companies need to prove that they are compliant. That's the biggest difference. As looking from the law side.
Yeah, I think that the point was that GDPR brought word consent. So that's probably the most used word in the last couple of months. So everybody's consent, consent, consent. But in the end, it's still a bit vague. What is consent?
So
my
you're
question,
opening the doors to my next question.
yes, my question, or your question, is what's the difference between consent and explicit consent?
But I'm going to use an example of a cookie, because everybody loves cookies. We are all more or less web developers. So, what's the consent versus explicit consent? Like, what cookies can I store? What cookies I need one kind of consent, the other kind of consent, and what? Like, I'm getting lost because some of the things are saying like you're not allowed to put any data on somebody's computer, but then some other people say no, you are, because that's a technical term and you need a cookie, so a website will not work without a cookie, which I think is bullshit. But like, what kinds of cookies can I store without, like, you just come here and like, what can I do when you just come and what I have to ask for?
Okay, so okay, I can start. So we'll continue. So it's kind of a really, really big issue. So first thing first. So when you start to do compliance, first thing that you need to have in your mind, that you need to have legal, interests or legitimate interest explicitly. Sorry, my English is sometimes rusty, so sorry about that. So legitimate interest assessment, that's first thing to do. You need to look at Article 6, 7, 8, and 9. So those articles define when the user has legitimate interests, where you can have this distinction. You have consent defined in Article 6 and 7, and there you can see that first thing when you have consent is that you can have notice. That's one situation with the consent, and the other case is where you have explicit consent. So when you can use notice, when you have directly defined that it is in interest of the user or to complete the agreement or to complete specific contract, then you can have this situation with the notice. That's usually the case when you have some kind of subscription or some kind of regular usage of users, then you can have this notice, but you need to have consent also as a notice. That's I think that is you understand what I mean. So it is not the case where you need explicit consent. That's the case when you have newsletters or you have specific, extra services that you're offering or something. Where you need to have, explicit, box where the user will click on that box.
I'm not sure if I agree.
Okay, you can.
Can I just say one more thing regarding the cookies and stuff? The question was, what cookies can I store, which can I? You cannot look at a cookie as a cookie. Look at this as a bunch of data. Then you take that data, and what am I doing with this data? That is the question. That's what he said. So basically, then you go. Do I have to store this data because of some kind of internal law? Do I have legitimate interest to do it? I cannot do my business without this data. Or the next thing is consent, and then if I have consent, then I need to have the obligation to revoke this consent, but that's more to the talk.
So, okay, let's dig into it. So, explicit consent, the word explicit is only mentioned 3 times in the whole GDPR 88 pages. And it's for 3 use cases. First case is if you send personal data to third countries, like countries outside of EU. The second is if you process and use sensitive data, not personal data, sensitive data, which means the data about your religion, your sexual preference, your political views and whatever. And the third is if you are subject of a automatic decision making with a big legal effect on you. Example is if you go to a bank and you want to take a loan, and then there is an algorithm that profiles you and says no. So for that, you need explicit consent. So that's the only three, not only, but three things that are mentioned. For the simple consent, there is 4 things that I remember that are important. So for the simple consent, you need to have, it needs to be informative in terms that the consent, the user needs to understand it. It needs to be unambiguous, which means that you cannot group several purposes into one consent. So it needs to be consent for this, consent for that. It needs to be freely given. You cannot say, give me consent and I will give you something. So that's strictly forbidden as far as I know. And the 4th thing is it needs to be affirmative or taken by affirmative action. What that means. Is that a click? Is that a double opt-in? Is that just continuing using it, or using the web or whatever? Is this, I don't know, what that means? That's the most,
So I have
the biggest question I have.
Okay, so
And it depends, and a lot of things depend on it. A lot of things that we will do depends on that. How will you?
So if we skip that Facebook is not from the EU because they do have EU subsidiaries, can I put a Facebook pixel, a Google tracking code or something on my website without the user saying yes?
So there are 3 things. Do you send the data outside of EU? The problem is there is this thing called Privacy Shield, which is a US-EU thing, which I don't know how many, 2,000 companies from US signed, which might mean that you can send this data to Facebook. The other thing is you process, with Facebook you process sensitive data, and then you use this information to target the user with the ads.
Oh, but I don't send Facebook any data.
No, but you use, if you combine your users with customer audience in Facebook, then you send it. You combine your data with Facebook data, and then you use...
No, they are combining it.
No,
Not me.
Not you, but they are the data processor in that case, which means you gave them the data, and they are processing it for you. So in that case, I would say that Facebook, the pixel with retargeting and remarketing and whatever, I would say it requires explicit consent, but that's just my opinion.
But then on the other hand, what Ojan said, if it's a business critical thing, you can do it. And everybody from marketing and sales will tell you remarketing is our crucial thing, we can't live without it.
Well, that should be proven in case.
If you respect the rights of the person in the end. So that's the case where you can't have a situation where business, it's kind of much more important than the rights of the person in the end. The rights of the person are always overriding the business interests. So that's the bottom line.
Okay, that's a good explanation.
Yeah, but what about the case when...
So about the explicit consent, you have these, 3 mentions, but when you look at the consent in general, so you have this situation where you can give notices at some specific situation where you can layer them inside the web forms as a notice. That's a possibility, But when you say explicit consent, it means that it needs to have a broadly informed process of all involved parties in the end. In your case where you mentioned, biometrics, you mentioned sensitive data and so on and so on. That's the explicit consent, where I need to ask you, do you approve me as a company to proceed, with this process and so on and so on. But it doesn't mean that, for example, I'm at one specific, web page, and I'm giving my name, surname, I'm giving my email, and so on, that I will not tick tick at the box, you know, that I accept that consent and so on. That's also kind of explicit consent. I've also given it by the box in the end.
But
It doesn't mean it is needed, yeah.
For what purposes?
So the purpose of the person in the end to be registered at the web page, you know. So for me to be in possibility as a user, you know, to be part of the platform, you know. So and from the other side, from the side of publisher, for them to have, you know, possibility to register you, to target you with the ads and so on and so on. And if they're targeting you with the ads, then they need to say that, you know, in the consent at first.
Do they need explicit opt-in?
Yes.
But what about if the whole business of the site is to serve ads because they are making money from it?
Okay, then you have publisher agreements, you know, between that part of the partners which are serving the cookies on the publisher side. You need to have law agreements, but on the publisher side, they will need to have at least notice about that. And when you have pop-ups or whatever, you know, processes that are happening, in that pop-ups as maybe surveys or whatever, they will need to have specific consent button at least, you know, to be in position as a user to click explicitly, you know, to say yes, I accept that procedure to continue with this.
But
I understand the position with cookies, you know, it's really hard case.
where does this?
Where is this written in the GDPR text?
You mean
I
what?
didn't find it.
Article 6, 7, 8, and 9 define.
That there is no opt-in or opt-out word in GDPR.
There is also no privacy word, only once happens, you know. So it is not, you know, that's the case with, you know, technically neutral solutions, you know. That's the interpretation in the end, you know.
Yeah, but then what to do in next 7 days?
That's a question. Can I just say one thing? It's all about transparency. You as a company, okay, you're serving ads, you're doing it. But if you're doing something shady, if you're trying to do something shady, I mean, you're trying
Just serving ads.
Okay, then why do you want to conceal it?
No, it's not about concealing.
Like the first thing that we all need to do, well, at least in 7 days, is to just write a page on your website or web application, whatever, is to say, okay, I use this data, I send it to here, etc. So that's like the bottom line. Just write what to do. But is that enough to be compliant?
My perspective is, for now, maybe yes. Maybe. Because, I mean, nobody can tell you that that's...
Okay, so
those are the body that will control us, you know? ASAP is the body that will control all of us, and that is the question that we have to ask them.
Well, sorry. So these are exactly the discussions that I want to avoid from now. So, but who should tell me how to handle it if I'm the developer? Who should say if it's okay or not?
Your DPO.
Data Protection Office.
Yeah. Data
So
Protection Office.
that's my next question. What is Data Protection Officer? Is that like a lawyer? Is that like a technical person? Is that like... Okay, so that's a completely new field.
Yeah. So just to answer back to the question. So it's easier when you have explicit consent. Because why? Because then you have opt-in strategy at one side, but it's much easier to have opt-out situation where when you have explicit consent. Then you have the document and you know how to target specific user when he wants to opt out, you know. But when you have notices, it's really harder for you to you know, force the user in the end to install specific cookie to avoid your ad servers and so on and so on. It's easier, you know, to have this procedure with explicit consent.
It's easier, but it's very damaging for my business.
I understand it from the sales side.
I will lose 95% of whatever, because if I ask strictly, please give me this consent, and then 95% people will say no, because it's by default opt-out, and then I will lose 95% of income. So it's very, very dangerous for me to search for explicit consent.
I don't know exactly what you do, but I think
just this
definitely there are solutions. You know, you have even kind of small inventions during this time of compliance. You know, like layered notices and so on and so on. So, but data protection officer is.
Okay, so one of the things that are pretty weird for me is the right to be forgotten. In sense of, well, I can send to you what, well, okay, 2 steps, not only right to be forgotten, but hey, what's all the data that you have on me, and please remove it. So like, there's a lot of apps, including mine, that will not handle really well trying to remove a lot of data around and how to handle the technical side of like a backup, which I have to do like every night, and then you come to my business and tell me, oh yeah, I want to be forgotten, then I have to delete you, and what do I have to do with all the backups and all the years of data where I have you?
Fine. Okay, so I think in the somewhere in the GDPR, I don't remember the article numbers, so just try to remember the text. So it says that of course the user has the right for erasure and right to be forgotten, etc. But it's as a company, if you have this request, you need to have at least some economical, let's say. You can say that you can do whatever you can do in an economical way. So you can say it's just too complicated, it takes too much time, it will cost a lot of money for us to go through all the backups, restore them, remove you, put them back to backup, etc., etc. So in my opinion, what you need to do is at least anonymize the data beyond recognition. So no pseudo-anonymization or whatever, just anonymize if the user requests for erasure. You don't need to, let's say, clear the rows. You just need to anonymize all the personal data. And then what you need to do is just record this request. So if you restore from backup, that you actually can repeat this. And that should be enough from my perspective.
Now my perspective. Okay. Finally. So basically, I don't know, my approach to that problem would be, if I get requests like that, delete everything about me, and I have it in my backups and everything, and I could say, exactly, it's too much, too big an expense for me, I don't know, but your data will be eventually erased because I keep my backups for, I don't know, 3 years. You have to set some kind of time frame. Why I'm holding your data for 3 years? Because it's in the backup and I cannot remove it. It's not easy for me. And I think this is fine. You just need to have some kind of logical like explanation. Why are you doing this? Not because I don't want to, but why am I doing this? No.
Yeah, I mean, what you can also try to do is you can try to when you do it, you have two types of backups. You can backup for a short time the live data, and if you need to keep something for a very long time because you need then anonymize the data before backing up.
Yeah.
And in that case, you can say, okay, we cannot remove it. It will be too difficult, but it will be there will be no more data in the backups of you in next 30 days or something.
Yeah. It all depends how long do you keep your backup data. But also you can do pseudonymization, so that's also part of the solution. But then you have to.
So just to answer this. So when the user is asking to remove specific things about him, it is not the case where you're removing everything. That's the rare case. But if someone wants to be removed from a CRM tool, for example, he was calling, the agent, he was speaking something, harsh words or whatever, he wants to have that removed, that needs to be in procedure as a possibility, for example. But if you have, big analytics, or you have fingerprints of devices, or you have, those areas where it's kind of hard to block specific fingerprint of device, because if we block iPhone of specific user, then we are in position to block, several other devices, or we just can't identify, specific device or something. You need to have, some kind of small assessment, about that issue where you will have layered, data about general user. What is collected about him, what is a possibility to have it deleted. Data protection officer will lead the compliance in the end. He will know what is possible, what is not. And when you have this situation where commercially it's not possible, to do that, you can argument that to the user, but in the end, you even can have small specific fee for the user to have it deleted, but you need to have it as a possibility, So that's the end case. But the practice will in the end show what will happen there, But you need to have that as possibility, definitely,
But okay, but what if we separate the backups? Instead of personal data we have in one backup, but all the payments in the other, all the products in the third, maybe invoices which we have to keep by another thing as a fourth thing. So if you actually want me to be deleted, be deleted, I maybe can actually delete just all the backups from the personal data and just keep like yesterday's.
Okay, so that's part where the role of data protection officer is really important. He needs to be in position to explicitly argument why specific parts of his log are not possibility to be removed. And he needs to show that, for example, if you have invoices, you have personal whatever. And by specific, of course, by specific, state departments or whatever, you have these laws which are, in position to need those documents for at least like 10 plus 1 year or whatever, Then you can argument that to the user, but you need to offer him possibility for the other data which is not part of specific, laws. So that's the case.
Yeah, like this one died. Basically, the data protection officer is like your officer in the firm, like I will find. He's the guy who puts himself into perspective of the end user as a physical person, of EU citizen. And he's there to see that all the rights, it's working.
Yeah.
Is it working?
It's not working, but...
So he puts himself into the role of the physical person, and he's trying to address all his rights about his data. So basically, what he said to you, he's in charge of giving you some kind of advices, how should you manage all your technical solutions. But he cannot say, you must do this, you must do it. First it has to go through decision boards or something. It depends from case to case. We cannot generalize. I mean, it's really, when we talk about GDPR, we can't say that one rule applies to every company. It would be maybe better to talk about some kind of specific cases that we want to solve and then put that in that perspective.
Regarding the DPO, I think his first role would be, or first task would be to try to minimize the data. That's like the first thing, because if you have less data about the user, all the things will be much easier. So if you don't need this or that, just remove it, don't use it, don't back it up, etc. So once if a user comes and asks for something to delete, you can just say, okay, there is a link on your profile, click on it, and that's done. So there's a bit work there, but it's doable, depending on the use case, of course.
Okay, I'm liking this DPO because now I can say, well, you're the DPO, just tell me what to do, I don't care. So we're going to end this panel, or maybe any questions?
Can I just say one?
Who is DPO here?
Mira.
trying to avoid that role, so good luck, guys. I mean, for me, the DPO is very, very important and very, very hard role, because you need to have technical knowledge, you need to have business knowledge, I mean, like organizational stuff, and you need to know how, I mean, in big organizations, you need to know how to talk to board members. That's
Holy shit, he just described me.
how much.
I'm sorry. Would you say that in practical plans, the DPO?
Our lovely hostess.
There are 2 chairs here, you know, empty chairs.
Yeah, just a small question. No need for that. In a practical way, can the DPO, in your opinion, be a person that is already doing another job in a company, or will it be a job unto itself?
There's a company with 3 people, and they need a DPO. Do they have a budget for hiring one additional person? I don't think so.
So actually there's a position to outsource the role of DPO to a company. So I would like to bring up my business card.
You are an expert
Actually, outsourcing, which I think a lot of people here will find interesting. How deeply does the outsourcing company, how deeply does your company get involved into the business? Because it seems to me it needs to go really, really down and be actively there.
Yes, okay, it's a great question. So, first thing, so when you have, decision that DPO will be that specific person, he is then coordinating the whole procedure. Even if you have a different company that will do GDPR compliance, even then the DPO who is named by the board is the person who is responsible for coordination of the whole processes. His role is to be part of the board. That's one thing. His role is to be like at disposal for supervisory body. He's also part of supervision, And on the third side, he's responsible directly to your clients. So he's like responsible for 3 sides, but you're paying him. That's the biggest thing, So other thing is that role of the DPO is to be part of your development teams, to supervise what is possibility to do, what is not possible to do. He is kind of person who will need to ensure everyone in the team that they are not doing anything against the law. That's the first thing. Other thing is when you outsource the role of the DPO on the company, you have a situation to have one specific person, but he's in direct, consultation with, in my case, we have law department team, then we have technical team, and then we have procedural team, So if I'm named as a DPO for a specific company, it depends on the cases, who is named DPO and so on and so on. The thing is that our company offers all 3 parts of the service, If I don't know something, I consult, with Anna, who is our lawyer, or I consult with Jan, who is CTO. So those are the cases. But on the paper, with the contract, you name the specific person from the company that you agreed to have this contract or whatever, So that's the usual situation. But in the end, person who is named is responsible to supervisory body, citizens, and to the board. And the board, as a CEO or other members, they need to understand that the position of DPO is really important, in the long run, So
it's the same thing as if you want to outsource chief information security officer. Same thing. You put one guy that will lead your whole security team, security stuff. What's happening behind? You don't care. You need everything working properly, and that's my job, basically. And other thing, what Ivo mentioned, maybe you don't need DPO. You first need to do something of system.
Okay. The question is, when do you need a DPO? When is it?
You know those 3 things you said, automatization and biometrical data and stuff, that pretty much gives you the obligation to have DPO. And if you, how do you say, public body. Yeah. What else?
So it's a bit vague.
No, it's not.
No, it's not. It's
explicit.
very, very specific. Yeah.
But you have two interpretations. One about...
And it's not vague.
No, it's not vague when you say that you're having, mass collection of data. That's specified in the GDPR. But you have two interpretations. One is from the Parliament. The other one is from the Commission. Commission says that you need to have over 5,000 per year numbers of collection and the processing of data. That's by Commission. Parliament says also 5,000, but they specify that it needs to be explicitly personal data. So
5,000.
5,000, yes, per year. That's by Commission, and by the Parliament, those 5,000 needs to be personal data. So that interpretation is the interpretation that I follow.
So if you handle more than 5,000
personal data, then you need to have DPO, and if you're a public body, and or if you're using technologies such as biometrics or technologies which are collecting potentially severe situations with breaches and so on and so on. Sorry.
Okay, but now you opened up for my next question, which is, so for most of the developers, they actually work one company working for a client that's in another company. And we usually have access to their production systems, which means that really often if I want to find out somebody's data, I can really easily find it out. Like how to handle those situations, because I'm not the employee of a client.
Well, I can start and then you can confirm or not confirm. First of all, if I understand it correctly, you need to have a contract. That's the first thing. So if you don't have a contract, then basically your client is responsible for it. So your client will need to, or the client should ask for you to have a GDPR compliant contract with you, so that the risk is then spread out. And then if you have your subcontract, you will need to have a contract with them, etc., etc. So you have a chain of responsibilities. That's one thing. The other thing is, I think the whole thing of GDPR is about risk. So if you want to lower your risk, you would not allow people to log into the production server. If your data is critical, you will try to, you will have a process to have less people there. And then if there is a breach, you can say, look, we did this and that, or we didn't do that, right? And then you will have a bigger or a lower fine. If you did a lot of things to protect the data, then probably the regulatory body or the body will fine you less. But if you had your passwords not encrypted, and you have every person be able to get to the data, etc., then you should get a big fine. You are doing really some bad practice.
One username and 10 people. Did I say something wrong?
No, everything is correct. So, what to add to that? I don't know.
I'm a GDP.
I wanted to add something. So as you said, you need to have at least specific agreements, and you need, first of all, you need to define who is controller. That's one side. Or other side, who is the processor. What's the difference? Difference is basically responsibility is kind of same, but main difference is that the controller is in charge of, for example, data protection defect assessment for the processor. So controller is the one who needs to address this risk that the processor is not in line with GDPR. That's a basic case. What does it mean in the long run? In the long run, it means that processors will not be from India, for example. So processors will not be from India in the end, So usually what will happen, this large outsourcing outside of Europe, to India and many other places will come back to Europe. That in the long run it will happen. Probably it will happen. I strongly believe that it will happen. But the first line is to define your relationship, as a controller to your processor and to impose, procedure of data protection impact assessment to see actually that he's in line. In the end, it's your responsibility to have a processor that's in line.
In your case, you're the processor. He's data collector. He's the data owner. He owns the data. He has to tell you how you will address the data, how you will handle it, what you're going to do, what technical measures you have to do, and then you will see. I mean, if you cannot comply, you will say, that's too expensive for me, or I cannot handle it, sorry.
I think in the end it's about common sense. Now, very like low amount of people should have access to the main transaction database in the bank, right? But if you have a website which has a newsletter list of 200 people with just emails, what's the risk there? Why would you need to do whatever, really huge work to protect that?
I mean, the biggest problem is that until now, nobody was that much concerned about security in general. So that's why all those, to me, basic questions, but now it's starting to be a big deal, because everybody is getting fined,
Yeah, but that's one of the things coming with GDPR about the security is data breaches and reporting and stuff like that. What do we have to do here from the technical side?
Okay, so first of all, you have Article 29, working party. That's one document, 29, 30 pages, something like that. You have how to do data protection impact assessment. You have direct models. You have recommendations how to do it. Just do it. That's the first thing. Other thing is, I just recalled the question that was here, and it's related to your question. So, can the DPO be named as a system administrator or someone who is, someone who is directly technical staff in the company? You had this case in Germany by the much less stricter law currently in 2016, where company was fined because system administrator was doing data protection impact assessment. He was the person who was in development deeply, of the solution, and in the end he was the person who was like DPO.
How do you say the such of interest?
Conflict of interest.
Conflict of interest.
Yeah, and the conflict of interest, my recommendation usually is like this. If you have company that is really large, that can support completely new role of DPO, then have it internally. If your company is a smaller one, just outsource it to the company. It will be much easier for you. You will be covered at all places. So that's my recommendation.
Okay, so there's the reporting part of the data breach, but what do we have? Do we have to do anything technically by GDPR that is changing now? For one thing that I read was you have to have audit logs of who read what, when, and stuff like that. If somebody just hacks my server, gets into it, I might never find out that I was breached, and I have to write a report about the thing that I have no idea happened.
Then you have a bigger problem. Yeah, risk assessment, and then you see what went wrong. I mean, based on that.
So that's also.
I would like to ask about the developer perspective. Thank you. My question is about developers' responsibility. It's something that we are talking about now. You said that DPO that he has most of responsibility. But what is the responsibility of me as a developer? For example, as I have some company who is developing, for example, websites and maintains all these websites for some other company. Who is responsible for security of this website? Me? Or I should do something that DPO of this company told me? If from this company nobody do not tell anything to me, should I do anything?
That would be same as the, I don't know, architect builds some kind of wrong scripts or something, and the builder build the house according to that script, and whole house collapses. Who is the guilty one, architect or the builder?
So you're the builder, you know.
Okay,
It's about the, you know,
It's company's responsibility.
it's a company responsible because they are collecting the data. So they are collecting that. They should worry about the data they collect. They should have a contract with you, so that they at least have some kind of, let's say, responsibility spread, so that later, if there is a breach, if the agency who is checking out the breaches defines that your fault it is, then you two will be fine, because you as a processor, right? But there is a contract with it.
No, he's not actively in solution, you know, as a developer. So you're doing web pages or web development?
The web page is the simplest example. So if I have maintaining of some web page, there are some personal data, and for example, I have some
and you have
CMS.
access to okay, then
Yes,
you're the
I
system.
can have access, but it's not. Maybe I do not have access. But
Okay, I understand that you're just doing the solution. Okay.
I should develop some solution where you should, for example, you should log in to do something. And if I do not make this login properly, and if somebody have access to data without this login, whose responsibility is this?
So.
Or if I have to implement SSL and I do not implement SSL, is it my decision to implement this SSL, or somebody should tell me to implement this?
So even as a developer, you can do some really bad stuff. You know, you can add some bad plugin to WordPress, and then through this plugin, someone comes into the system and fetches the data. So who made the mistake? The developer, the system administrator, maybe because he didn't check that the WordPress whatever is not updated, whatever. But also the client, because he has a contract with you, he is the main responsible. But because you have the contract with him, you made a mistake, you are also in some way responsible, as far as I know.
From my side, I mean, if I was the client, we have to define how smart our client is. Is it the client who knows something about applications, and then he can define the contract that his application needs to be secure, that you need to follow some kind of best practices. We all heard about almost contents, or something like that. You know, some basic rules. Then other measure could be do some kind of penetration test, outsource some kind of company to hack my site, so we can see where it can be breached. Then we can find some kind of solutions to the breach. You know, there are solutions.
Whose responsibility is this? Of company or
I would
me?
say company.
Company needs to worry about the data.
Yeah.
So if the company is like, okay, just do whatever you did, that's not a good thing. You should, the DPO or whoever is on the company should try to enforce the best possible protection of the data.
Yes, but it's a question who made the decision how I should protect the data, the company or me?
Okay, so GDPR says that it's technically neutral, but you need to be up to the commercial standards. So it's kind of broad possibility of interpretation. That's one thing. Other thing is that you need to have a legally defined status of you. I don't know if you're a freelancer or you're a person who is running a company. That's big difference, you know. If you have like a controller and as a company and your company is processor, then both of you are responsible. But if you're like person who is just managing the system as a freelancer, that's a different case. You're not explicitly processor as a company. That's different because they're using you as a freelancer, they're outsourcing you as a person who is inside of the company, but you have specific contract and so on and so on. That complete responsibility is on the company who is controller in this case. You need to define that. So if you have no answer, it's good, but
I didn't. My question is in a situation where you're working for a company that is not interested in GDPR.
Okay, so
I
I understand.
have any contact. I'm doing my job, and I find that there can be some problem, but they are not interested in anything.
Okay.
So, is there any?
Okay, person who is responsible for the communication of the data breach is actually data protection officer. That's the first address in whole line. First person, you know. He needs to inform supervisory body in 72 hours that something happened and to have complete log about the case. The thing with the fines is not that that thing can happen in all systems, you know. Data breach is always possibility, you know. But if you're up to the commercial standards and you're using, you know, solution which is commercially proven and it happened, then the DPO from the controller will easily argument the case, you know. That's the thing. And we started discussion about the notices about data breaches, but we can come up to that later.
Maybe just to add that even though if you are not, like, if you are an employee in a data processor company and there's a other company which is a data controller and you said there is not much worry about GDPR and something happens and like, let's say you don't feel responsible, maybe you are not responsible, even then, at least from my side, what you should do is have proven record. You as an employee or you as a company, as a data processor company, that you said or you send an email, whatever, to the data controller, look, we are using bad security practices. We need to do this and this and that. So you can at least, maybe in the future, if the ASOP comes and then explores some breach, you say, look, we warned them.
Yeah.
They didn't listen. They didn't change things, etc., etc. How do you do that?
Yeah, you're trying to shield yourself from that. You can always say, I told you so, you know. Because, for example, you have some very successful hairdresser. She doesn't care about security, you know, but she wants very fancy web application or mobile application with login, I don't know why, for her loyalty program or something. And you're developing it. She comes to you and she says, how much money do I have to pay you to develop this and this? You say, blah, blah. And you're starting to develop this and GDPR comes along and she doesn't know about it. So maybe your part of the job would be, you know, there is this one thing called GDPR. You have to implement some kind of security measures, but it will cost you a little bit more because, you know, and you explain her the details, and then you did your whatever you could do, or maybe if it's costly to you to implement those measures. But if you are a good developer or something, then you're already doing some kind of best practices regarding the security development and privacy design.
But I think that our friend is mostly concerned about the fines. You can't be fined as a person, as we look at GDPR. You can be fined as a processor or controller. So, as a company, that's the case. As developer inside a specific company or something, there is no possibility for you personally to be, you know, charged or something.
Ako mogu samo na hrvatskom kratko. Dakle, mi imamo, ne znam kako je to pravilo na engleski, imamo obrte koji su zapravo fizičke osobe, to radim ja sam za sebe, imamo obrte, ja sam pravna osoba.
Znam, to je slučaj, odgovorit ćemo onda na hrvatskom. Znači, That's the case? Okay. Znači, to je sad slučaj gdje obrt kao takav nije poslovni subjekt za sam GDPR, ali to je opet dugoročno još jedan drugi tip problema. Znači,
Let's not go into legal details.
Ok, znači za slučaj obrta, ako to ti radiš osobno, znači to je slučaj gdje ćeš ti dati notice, znači partneru bilo kome, što se tiče developmenta, znači šta je sa slučajem breacha i
Let's skip this.
Okay.
You can talk afterwards.
Okay, we can discuss.
We have another question.
Just to confirm that obrt
is not.
That's like personally run company. It is.
Self-employment is not a
yes,
company.
That's not the company. Yes.
So obrts are not eligible for GDPR.
Yes, they are, but
Not fine. You cannot get fined, but you should worry about GDPR.
Okay. So just
that's really shady place, you know, to discuss about self-employment, because that's like
in Croatia.
That's in Croatia, you know, and it's a specific form where, you know, you have different right sets, different business obligations, you know, it's completely different structure inside the market, you know. It doesn't mean that you can completely avoid GDPR and you shouldn't care, you know, it's not the case. Okay.
Just a quick question about, you said that the person cannot be fined.
Person as such, you know.
Yeah, as such, but
inside the company, you had the former draft of law of application where you had Article, I think, 42, which or 47, 48, I'm not sure. So you had even persons as CEOs who were in position to be charged for 5,000 to 200,000 of kunas, but recent final, law of application on 27th April said that you don't have this measure, you know, for persons to be personally charged.
Because I read somewhere that under the GDPR, the company is fined and the person responsible. So that's
that was first draft of law of application, but now it's not the case.
Okay.
First of all, am I allowed to ask you questions?
If you sit here, yes.
Right, I'll sit there.
Yeah. The more, the merrier.
Yeah. Swing a little more.
Thank you, man.
Right. Thank you very
What's
much.
your name?
My name is Igor. I'm a PHP developer in a company that, among other things, has a cloud hosting service. And that's pretty much what I'm here to talk about. So let me add this little spice to this discussion. Okay, before we start, I just want to relate back to one of the things you said earlier. A company needs to have a DPO if it handles more than 5,000, what exactly? Persons or personal data? Because one person can have a lot of personal data.
Yes, by interpretation of the parliament, that's personal data, actually. Like, no, commission says personal data, but actually parliament says like persons.
Oh, right, makes
Okay.
sense. Yeah.
Yes.
Right, well, the other thing, cloud hosting. Any of you in cloud hosting? Yeah, I'm sure you'll be interested in. Okay, so here's a very specific situation that we have. We offer a service on cloud, an application, and we sell the service to our clients. When they apply, all of them get a blank database, which they then fill with their own, well, with the data their business requires them to fill in. However, we host the cloud service and we maintain it, which means at occasion, if something breaks or there is a bug or something, we may need to access their data.